All right, guys, bang, bang. I've got Greg here with me. Thank you so much for doing this.
You bet. Happy to be here.
Greg, you got a really unique background in the natural resources space, and now you run what is probably one of the more unique Bitcoin mining operations. Maybe let's just start with kind of your background, where the interest in natural resources come from, and then we'll get into kind of what you guys are doing in the Bitcoin mining world.
You bet. Thanks for that. Yeah, I've spent most of my career as an investor in the energy space. The past 10 years, my last job was running the natural resources group for the private equity firm called Apollo. Before that, I was 10 years at Riverstone, another energy-focused private equity firm, and I started in the energy group in 1993 at Goldman Sachs, doing investing and banking. So energy is really all I've known, and mostly from the investor standpoint.
Got it. And when you're at Apollo, if you're the global head of like natural resources or energy, what do you do all day? Right? Is it just you're just looking through and kind of evaluating various businesses to buy? When you talk about it from like the investor seat, just maybe explain what that is on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I think it ends up being a relationship business. So I was mostly, on good weeks traveling to Texas, meeting with colleagues and friends, and prior investments that I had made. And then you're always looking for new investments to make. So you're, a little bit of studying, a lot of networking. And then obviously, leading a group, you end up doing quite a bit of administrative things as well. Apollo is a big firm, so there's a little bit of that there as well. But, in the good weeks, you're spending time with really great entrepreneurs in the space. So I would say I've had the privilege of finding and working with just some fantastic talent that in an entrepreneurial way has been able to make money, a lot of money in the energy space over 25 years.
And so as you're doing this, you're doing it in a pretty traditional kind of environment, right? The various firms that you've worked at, they're world-class at what they do, but most people would kind of put them in the incumbent or the kind of the top of the legacy financial system. At what point does Bitcoin and kind of the cryptocurrency mining come on your radar? Like at what point are you like, hey, this is interesting use of energy?
Yeah, so I think the background with Stronghold is Bill Spence is my partner in Stronghold, and he was one of those talented CEOs and entrepreneurs that I had come across during my Riverstone time. I left Riverstone, more than 12 years ago. So I've known Bill, feels like almost 20 years now, and because Bill has been an expert on the fuel management side of this type of power plant, he was able to acquire the plant, and then he brought me in as a partner. And just because we had a lot of inbounds from Bitcoin miners looking to buy power from us, we began to appreciate if you're mining Bitcoin, it's really difficult to get access to cheap power. And most power providers are big utilities and are tough to reach and tough to deal with. And getting the power down to the right voltage is not easy. We'll generate power at 13,000 volts plus, and then Bitcoin miners use it at 415. So power plants aren't really set up to have local users. So after the 10th phone call from people looking to buy power from us, and we sold power to a few guys, and then in doing the math just to make sure, hey, is this customer going to go bankrupt, or how does this business really look? We studied it from the vantage point of, hey, what if we mine Bitcoin ourselves? And it turns out it's much more economic to mine Bitcoin than it is to generate power and sell it to the grid. And it's more economic to mine it yourself than it is to sell power to other Bitcoin miners. So It's really I wish I could say that we just woke up and said, hey, I want to be Bitcoin miners. That's almost how it happened, but I would say it was a road that we traveled thinking that maybe we'll sell power to them before we figured it's just better to do it ourselves.
Got it. And you guys with Stronghold are building a vertically integrated Bitcoin miner, meaning that you own the power source and then you've got the equipment itself. But the power source specifically is very unique. I was reading up on what essentially is coal waste and there's a tier structure. It's considered this like tier 2 alternative energy source. So maybe just talk through like, how do you generate power, regardless of if you're selling it to the grid, using it to mine Bitcoin or anything else? It's just such a unique process. Kind of, how do you describe that to people?
Yeah. So I think first of all, this is not a coal-fired power plant. We are burning a waste material that it's toxic to the environment that it exists in. And here's how it happened. So we've been mining coal in Pennsylvania, in West Virginia, the coal belt of the United States for more than 100 years. The good product, metallurgical coal or thermal coal, was used to make steel and used to make power. And that's the steel that built New York City, built Pittsburgh, the steel that built the tanks that fought World War II. That's why we needed all of this coal. When the good coal was mined, it wasn't all good. So some of it was close to the edge, and it contained a lot of rock or other materials that couldn't be used. And so instead of disposing of that properly, they put that bad material just next to the mine mouth. And those piles filled valleys and created new ridge lines and mountains. So it's just literally hundreds of millions of tons of this material was mined in addition to the good stuff that was used. And the bad news about these piles, there are more than 700 of them in Pennsylvania alone. 90 of them are currently on fire, burning without any emissions control on them at all. It's the biggest source of water pollution in the state. And it's really, in my view, it's sort of a form of class warfare. We went in, we stripped an area of all the resources. We then, left town and left a big mess behind that's messing with the water table and people's ability to have a sort of good quality of life in those areas. And there's only one way to clean it up. You can't. I think some might say, well, you can spread some fairy dust or beach seed grass on top of these piles and pretend they're not there anymore, but that doesn't really clean it up. The only way to clean it up is to load it up in excavators and burn it in a controlled way with emissions controls, and recontour the land to its original contours and replant properly, and then you'll end up with revitalized communities with ball fields instead of ash and smoke and contaminated water. So I think if you showed you pictures of what these, they're called piles, but that's really makes you think about something in the scale of like a pile of leaves in your driveway. These are literally mountains, and the water that's coming off of them runs red. It's sulfuric. It's essentially equivalent to having battery acid leaking into your water table. So if this were happening in more wealthy communities, they would have already been cleaned up. So because it's such a big environmental problem, and the only way to remediate it is to gather it up and burn it, the state incentivizes us by giving us renewable energy credits and giving us grants to clean up these sites. And there's more than 30 years of this stuff out there at the current rate that we're cleaning it up today. So it's not economic to burn it and gather it and do all this reclamation without those renewable energy credits, which is why the state put them into place, and they just reaffirmed it and made them more valuable even this January 1st. So it's on the radar of the state of Pennsylvania legislative body, and the governor, because if we don't do it, if all of these reclamation plants went away, it's a 1,000-year problem, and it ought to be cleaned up. So it's really it is putting carbon into the atmosphere. That's the knock on it, but the reality is that carbon would end up in the atmosphere anyway, because these piles burn, even if they're not put into a plant, they'll burn. Lightning will hit them and they'll combust on their own. And if you do it in this way, you're then eliminating all of the nasty sulfur and mercury that ends up in the environment if it's not done in this controlled way.
Got it. And so when you think about going to the actual pile or kind of this mountain of toxic material, do you take like a dump truck and like literally put it into the dump truck and then take it to the plant, or like how do you get from where it is to actually generating the power?
Yeah, so we have employees locally at these sites that run excavators and loaders, and we'll have local guys contracted to move them in trucks to the reclamation facility at the plant. So it's all in, we're employing a few hundred people.
What's up, guys? Bang, bang. I hope you're enjoying this conversation. But before we go any further, I want to quickly tell you about today's sponsor, BlockFi. BlockFi's got 4 different financial products for crypto investors. You can deposit crypto and earn up to 8.6% APY in an interest-bearing account. You can deposit crypto and take out a US dollar loan against your crypto collateral. You can use their cryptocurrency exchange and have no trading fees, or you can get a new Bitcoin rewards credit card. It's a normal credit card that when you swipe, you get Bitcoin back rather than cash back or airline miles. I'm an investor in the business and a very happy user. I think you will be too when you go to blockfi.com/pomp. Again, blockfi.com/pomp. Go check it out and let me know what you think. All right, let's get back into this conversation. I hope you enjoy it.
And then when it gets to the plant, is this a process that would be similar to kind of traditional coal, like burning type power plants? Is there something different that happens there? And I think that where some of the misunderstanding happens is, one, taking the material out of what I'll call kind of the natural environment in which it lays today has a very material kind of environmental impact. And a lot of people, I think, kind of ignore that or don't understand it. And then you basically bring it to the plant, and then what happens at the plant?
Yeah. So, by the way, it's a specialized plant that can burn this material because it's really low BTU, and so we have a fluidized bed that allows. That's the technology that's used to essentially suspend this material with limestone. We add limestone in, and that lets it combust and make a beneficial ash out of it. But the difference between this plant and regular thermal is, one is our material needs to be sorted out. It needs to be dried out. Sometimes it'll have metal in it because this was an industrial process that created in the first place. So you can't just you're not getting a regular thermal plant will have a contract to have thermal coal delivered on a certain BTU spec and a certain dryness associated with it to make it burn kind of easily. Our material needs to be dried out, needs to be sorted out. Some of it's low BTU, some high, some has other material in it that needs to be sorted out. So it's a big project and a big job to handle this material and make it burn in an efficient enough way to make it worthwhile to do it. It's not, you just can't show up and expect it all to go with ease. It is a big sorting process to get to handle the material. So it's the facility, and we're choosing to partner with the state to clean up these sites, but we could burn other waste as well. It's a multi-use facility that we're just given the scale of the problem locally for Pennsylvania, we're choosing to burn this coal waste material in it.
Got it. And so then once you have the kind of power generated, if you will, what you do with it, I think is also unique in that the plan here is to mine Bitcoin. Maybe you can talk a little bit about kind of where you all are in the progress of setting up those mining operations. But then you also have the ability to sell the power into the grid or kind of provide power to the grid in times of need. So maybe talk through just like the decision-making framework that you all have in terms of when you mine versus when you support the grid, and then kind of how you think about how that could change throughout the year.
Yeah, so we're a vertically integrated miner, which means we own our own power asset, which we think is a huge advantage for us. One is our cost of power, and our future is in our own hands. So I think if you looked at us compared to others, I think our cost of power is going to be on an all-in basis, CapEx and variable cost is going to be lower. But right now we own one power plant called Scrubgrass in Western Pennsylvania. We're contracted to buy a second power plant called Panther in Eastern Pennsylvania. and we've ordered enough Bitcoin mining equipment to fill the capacity of both plants, or maybe about 70% of the capacity of both plants. And the idea is we'll run the plants, and when the grid needs the power to power homes because there's a heat wave or another plant went down, we are going to deliver all of the power to the grid and shut down the Bitcoin mining operation for whatever period of time that power is needed. We're earning capacity payments from the grid to provide the grid that stability and that service. So in a way, by running the plant as really a baseload facility, we're reclaiming much more land, and we're making the grid more stable by having an asset that's already up and running that can have all of that power be switched back over to the grid if needed with a few minutes notice. Like before Bitcoin, we would need to have the plant running, at least 12 hours before it could make enough power to be delivered to the grid. So it really wasn't great for an emergency of a moment. It would be fine for a next day power, but not for power needed in a very short time frame. Interestingly, the way the United States is building out a renewable energy infrastructure, having baseload plants running that can deliver power in seconds to the grid without having this power and the ability to divert it back to the grid, you'd end up with a much less reliable grid. So we're seeing brownouts in California, brownouts now and blackouts in Texas. I think we can make a more stable grid as we're smarter about using the existing baseload assets that we have and doing this kind of load curtailment rather than relying on really expensive batteries, which is sort of the kind of a low tech way to do it. We're all going to end up paying 5 times the price for power if we continue down the path that we seem to be going down now.
What's fascinating to me about this is you essentially have the ability to mine Bitcoin. If the grid needs the power, then you can switch there. And I'm guessing because it's in a moment of need, there's an economic advantage as well, right? Of being able to kind of go back and forth between Bitcoin and the grid depending on need. Now, it sounds like you all have kind of a non-economic kind of commitment to the grid of just, hey, if you guys need the power, we'll send it to you. How often does that happen? Is it for long periods of times? And also, I guess, what is the economic impact, either good or bad, for Stronghold in those moments?
Yeah, no, it's actually that's a great point. Like mining Bitcoin, you might make around $150 a megawatt hour or up to $200 per megawatt hour, depending on which equipment you're running. And current grid pricing might be in the $30 to $35 a megawatt hour. So you'd much rather use that power to mine Bitcoin. But during times of crisis, obviously power prices spike. And so I think in Texas, we saw prices, something like $900 a megawatt hour for a brief period of time. And so in those instances, of course, shut down the Bitcoin mining operation and become a power producer again. So it's really an arbitrage on the switch. And but it takes a pretty unique crisis to have power prices spike to be elevated to the point that would be more economic than Bitcoin. But it could happen. Obviously, Bitcoin mining is as more miners are added to that the grid or the more hash rate is added globally, it becomes less economic to mine Bitcoin. And so I think there will be a threshold time where it'll be closer. But where economics are today, you want to mine Bitcoin. But that's the big advantage of being vertically integrated. If you just are buying power from someone else, you don't have that option. The power provider does.
Do you think that major energy companies are going to start mining Bitcoin, similar to the kind of calculation that you all went through? And obviously you've got these very kind of unique aspects to the plant that you own, the energy source, et cetera. But if you're just an everyday large energy provider and people keep calling and saying, hey, I want to buy energy for Bitcoin mining, at some point, do they just say, why don't we do it ourselves and try to build a similar vertical integration in other parts of the country? Or how do you think about that?
Yeah, you know what? I don't fear big public utilities coming into the space in a big way in the near term. And the reason for that is it's a different business than what they have typically done. And now being in this business myself, the relationships you need to have to get access to the equipment or access to the transformers. It's a new business that's probably, there will be rewards for those that are early and a little bit brave. And public utilities, I wouldn't describe them as generally leaders or more followers. And it's a different bunch. So, you're going to have to, wire a lot of money to China to buy this equipment. That's going to make people nervous. Setting up a data center. If you're in the power business, it's a very different business than the data center business. So you really have to be experts at both. So I think, we'll see a little bit of it, but I would be surprised if the biggest names in the power space become the biggest names in Bitcoin mining. That would be an unexpected event. But I think, of course, some entrepreneurial power focused people that control their own generating asset, they are thinking about this, and some are doing it.
The large public utilities, I don't think anyone thinks of them as courageous or early adopters of many things. So I think you're probably more correct than not there. You all raised $105 million recently. Tell us a little bit about the fundraise and then what that capital is for.
Yeah, so hey, I'm really proud of our team that we, in a very fast way, sort of between, I think we had the idea to do an equity finance, an equity raise in January, and we were closed in April and did an add-on acquisition, shortly after that. So we used a team, or partnered with a team at B. Riley to raise the capital. But I would just say to me, it was evident how enthusiastic the equity investor or equity marketplace is around Bitcoin generally. I think a year ago, the institutional levels of capital wasn't as available as it was in the first half of this year. We now see groups like Fidelity and some very smart investors recognizing that, hey, Bitcoin can be a store of value that could look like gold. I think it doesn't hurt that we now can't pick the paper without having fears about inflation and the impacts of just printing our currency like it's wallpaper, which we're doing. So I think it's a confluence of factors are making it interesting. But as far as the fundraise goes, I think we had probably 30 or 40 half hour to 1 hour video meetings with investors, many very sophisticated guys, family offices, hedge funds that, understood the market. I think my first, without having met the investors in the beginning, I was worried that it would be more, sort of retail momentum focused people. And that wasn't the case. I think the vast majority of the capital are invested because of the fundamental merits of Bitcoin and the merits of us as a vertically integrated mining business. So I think, people really understood, what we're doing. And I think we had a really successful raise because of that. We went out looking to raise $60 million and ended up closing in 105. So it's, I think that speaks for itself.
Yeah, it's a pretty good fundraise there. When you look forward, what does this become? Are you trying to build Stronghold into like a national mining brand that you want to go and continue to acquire power plants and continue their vertical integration strategy? Is it something where you stay in Pennsylvania? Just how do you think about kind of future plans and where the aspiration is?
Yeah, so hey, we're not going to stop here. We have a lot of execution work to do. Owning 2 plants now, and with something like 30,000 miners showing up between now and the end of the year, it's a lot of 30,000 machines to plug in. About 100 sort of mobile data centers are being built right now to handle them. Thank goodness we ordered all of the transformers and all of the switchgear and equipment long ago to be able to handle, because the weight even for that equipment now is is 6 to 12 months. The global sort of supply chain problems are felt across the board, but I think we've been mostly ahead of it. We have a third plant that we're trying to buy that's in the same waste coal reclamation business as the first two. And we're going to work hard to get that third plant. And then I would say as a miner, we contemplate obviously growing the fleet. We have cash flow that we can choose either to hold Bitcoin on our balance sheet, or we can convert it to dollars again and buy more machines. I think we'll try to find the right balance. I think if there's another crypto winter in our future, we want to be, well capitalized and maintain liquidity enough to survive that, and hopefully even grow into it. As opposed to just, when things are hot, machines are in short supply and everything's, more expensive and takes longer. So I think we want to be in a position to be a low cost leader in the space, and then not, while we're always in a giant hurry, we don't want to mess up our capital structure or overpay in a way that we might regret if there's a downturn that lasts for some period of time. So if we debated here, should we, there are other ancillary businesses adjacent to mining that we should get into, or should we mine something other than Bitcoin, or do GPU mining? So I think we're constantly thinking about it and looking at our assets and understanding that with our low cost of power, that's truly environmentally beneficial. Should we just mine Bitcoin or do other things as well? And I would bet that in 5 years we will have multiple strategies that we've executed on. But hey, I would say between now and the end of the year, I would settle on just building out these two plants in a flawless way. That would be a good achievement this year.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I think I really come to appreciate kind of learning more about the business is it's a very unique strategy. The benefits are pretty obvious once you start to understand the power generation, the vertical integration, and kind of the cost of the power that you're able to generate. But you have a great appreciation for, you can have kind of these great ideas, but the execution is still important, right? And so just actually going out there and executing every single day is ultimately going to determine whether you all are successful or not. So it'll be pretty cool to watch. Before I let you go, I always ask everyone the same 3 questions, and you get to ask me one to finish up. The first is more serious. What is the most important book that you think you've ever read?
Oh, that's a great question. That's actually a question that I often ask people that I interview for jobs. Like, what's the last book you read? Most important book. It's got to be, Atlas Shrugged. That's. I think, sadly, I think we're sort of living aspects of that novel in our political and social lives today, which is unfortunate for all of us to have analogies of that book to what we're currently living through. But I think we are. So that's probably the book that I would say is the most important one.
Yeah, that is a great one. Second question is a little bit more personal. Your sleep schedule comes from our friends over at 8 Sleep. They have this thermoregulated bed. So I used to sleep like 5 or 6 hours. Now I sleep on this mattress that I can make freezing cold. And I don't know the science. I'm not a scientist, but somehow it makes me sleep a lot better. And I sleep like 8 or 9 hours and I feel way, way better. What's your sleep schedule been like over the last few years, and how has it changed?
Yeah, so I think the Apollo sleep schedule is much different, and many, it's fewer hours than what the sort of suburban life of solitude that COVID allowed. So I think I would, it used to be probably 5 to 6 hours a night, different time zones so regularly that you never really get adjusted. But now I'm probably a solid, 8 hours. I'd like to go to sleep maybe 11 o'clock. And if I can get up early, that would be a preferred way to do it, as opposed to, I don't want to stay up all night and then sleep in. I prefer to get up like at 6 a.m.
Yeah. I'm the same exact way. I'd rather wake up early than go to sleep real late. Third question is the most fun one. Aliens. Are you a believer or a non-believer?
I wish I believed.
Why do you not believe?
Because it's the same reason why I don't believe in Bigfoot. If you actually have physical evidence other than like a grainy, videotape, let's see it. And if they're all over the place, let's have something physical that you can see other than a anecdotal. I saw something look like a Tic Tac. So I'm going to wait until we have the actual, dead alien and spacecraft before I'll become a believer in that one.
So we actually probably, when you explain it, are more closely aligned than I thought we were. I always say I'm a believer. I just think that they are likely to exist because the kind of solar system is so vast, but we'll never come in contact with them during our lifetime, right? Kind of the whole idea of time and things like that is probably going to prevent it.
No, we're on the same page then. Is there life in the universe other than us? Absolutely. Yeah. There's no chance that we're alone here, but have we been visited? Like, who would know?
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. All of the UFO reports, I always tell folks, they're unidentified objects, right? Once we identify them, they're no longer UFOs. So we got work to do, but we'll see. You get to ask me one question to finish up. What do you got for me?
So what is your goal for your brand new show? Like, you have target number of watchers and listeners, or what are you hoping to achieve this for yourself this year?
No, I think the big thing with the show is, we've invested so much capital over the last couple of years, and just over and over and over again. It was kind of sad, actually. Like, just so many people kept saying, like, I don't understand the economy. I don't understand how finance works. I don't understand how money works. I'm saving all my money, right? And you're like, well, that's probably not what you want to be doing. And so naturally, it just became a thing where myself and two of my brothers, we said, listen, we're not the greatest geniuses in the world, but we know a hell of a lot more than most people and have been able to use that to our advantage. What if we just every single day talked about it? I think it was pretty obvious pretty quickly that there was going to be a pretty big appetite for it. I always approach these things with, I have no clue what it turns into, right? And you just kind of take it one day at a time and let's see what happens. But based on the first show, I think we're probably onto something.
Nice. Good luck with it. Congratulations.
I appreciate it. Where can we send people to find more about Stronghold or find you on the internet if they want to follow up with you?
You know what? We have a website, strongholddigitalmining.com. And, I'm on LinkedIn, so I'm happy to hear from people if people have follow-up questions.
Awesome. Well, listen, Greg, I really, really appreciate your time. I think what you guys are doing is fascinating. And as you continue to build it out, we'll have to bring you back to give us an update. So keep up the great work, and we'll do it again soon.
I appreciate it. Thanks for good questions. Talk to you soon.